hell was this movie? I'm not kidding. After watching The Substance 2024, the only thought that I walked away with, and honestly, one that I've been having before it was even halfway done, was holy crap, what a freaking stupid movie. Like, I actually can't believe this was a full-length feature film. Some concepts should stay as short films from those indie YouTube studios. You know, the kind that you can watch in 10 minutes or less? This one definitely should have stayed in that realm. It absolutely didn't need to be stretched into over 2 hours of my life. There was so much about this movie that made no sense, and yes, I get that it's supposed to be abstract, but in my opinion, there's a way to do abstract film, and this was not it. It honestly felt like a parody of an artsy film, a bloated, self-important version of abstract that didn't really have anything to say. The shots dragged on and on to the point that it wasn't just boring, it actually became uncomfortable to sit through. Good lord, I even watched this movie on double speed, and it still wasn't fast enough. I swear to you, I'm not exaggerating or trying to be mean. I genuinely could not believe how painfully slow this movie was. We've got scene after scene of the same thing happening over and over. Like, there's one bit where the character is stitching the other one up, and they actually show her putting the needle in, drawing it out, placing the needle in, drawing it out, putting the needle in, like really slow, tying the stitch, drawing it out again and again and again. Probably like 6 times. See, it starts from 31 minutes and ends on 32 minutes. So you took a whole minute of a scene just so we could see someone stitching someone up. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here watching this on double speed and still wondering, what is the point of this? I know they were aiming for shock and body horror, but after a while, it stops being shocking or uncomfortable and just becomes downright annoying. I wasn't even disturbed, I was just irritated, feeling like my time was being wasted with each repetitive shot. Whoever edited this movie seriously failed it. Someone should have told the director or whoever that a good chunk of these shots needed to be cut. But honestly, if they'd cut out everything that deserved to be axed, they probably would have been left with like 20 minutes max of this movie. And that might still have been too long for what this film was trying to do. Then there were characters and the exaggerated up-close shots of faces, all aiming for the over-the-top fish lens, but it just comes across as freaking ridiculous. Oh, the men in particular were the shallow caricatures. Each of these dudes, every single man in this felt like this exaggerated, nasty character, and this was the villain, and I guess they were trying to make him look as gross as possible, which, yeah, they achieved, but it was done so over the top that it made me forget everything else, and it just made it come across as unbelievable, like they were trying not to be serious, which causes the message to be lost. And it's odd, given how often we hear in the entertainment industry about women feeling this way in real life, and women also being the ones that are super critical when it comes to beauty standards. But do we ever see it from the women's perspective in this? Those in the entertainment industry that are just as judgmental? Nope, just from the dudes. The dudes are so cartoonishly stupid and cruel, and oh my god, the poor women. Like, it's just weird. And it caused the movie to feel as though it was incredibly biased, probably written from the lens of a middle-aged woman who was bitter. And I swear to god, I didn't even know who wrote this movie ahead of time until I looked it up, and that's exactly who wrote it. Like, it's almost on the money. Almost like it's a self-insert or something. I'm not saying that's absolutely the case, but that's how it came across, and I wasn't wrong in guessing that was the demographic for the person who wrote the movie. I get that it's supposed to be a social commentary on body dysmorphia, vanity, and her character being an awful person, to be honest, and blah, 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 but I don't think it was executed in the best way at all. In my opinion, it would have made a better impact if the film were cut down to about 15 minutes, but because it's stretched out so freaking god-awfully long, it just turns into a slog to watch. Sure, I kept watching because, you know, you want to see where it goes, but for most of the film, I'm fast-forwarding to get to the point. I think this film is supposed to be predominantly body horror, but then you barely get to see much of that. The characters are badly written and super surface level. So if they were trying to make a social commentary actually have some depth, I felt like personally it failed big time. Ironically, for a movie called The Substance, it lacked any of that entirely. I'm sorry, but the first thing I thought about was how Demi Moore's character is actually supposed to be switching into this better body, but she's not actually experiencing this person's life. She doesn't even remember what this person remembers and vice versa. So what is the ever-loving point of this? She's very jealous of the girl, and the girl hates her, and this is basically supposed to be her clone, so to speak. But that's another stupid thing. This supposed clone, Sue, looks absolutely nothing like her. Dude, they showcase that they even have different eye colors. And dude, I'm sorry, but her face looks freaking dumb. And I don't mean that she's ugly. It's just that this is supposed to be a younger, better version of Demi Moore. Yet this woman, Demi Moore, even in her old age, still looks way more beautiful than this girl in her prime, which makes no freaking sense. It's funny how in this scene, they try to drive it home home by showing her body and her tits, and the tits look fake as hell. They look like prosthetic breasts. It looks like the Hershey's Kisses were painted on, and it looks faker than the toys that you order off of Amazon or Adam and Eve. Like, it's actually insulting. For all the special effects and practical effects that are used, they couldn't make them look real? And if that's how they actually look on her real actual body, then damn. You need to go in ASAP and have someone fix that. And I know some people are gonna be like, well, you're body shaming. It's not an actual body. It doesn't look like someone's actual tits. Make it believable, especially if you're going to be exaggerating it, which they do in every single scene where they're sexualizing the characters. Like the cabaret dancers at the end, which I'll talk about later, they actually look real. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at the movie. The tits look like they're CGI. They don't even move. I don't know, bro. I think it's absolutely the wrong casting choice for the younger or so-called better version. Younger doesn't always mean better in terms of looks. There are plenty of younger people who look ugly as shit. So even aside from this whole thing, what would be Demi Moore's motivation to keep using this substance if she's not getting anything out of it whatsoever? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Honestly, Lookism, the South Korean anime, made 100% more sense than this mess of a movie in the way it handled its concept. In Lookism, the main character still has all his experiences and memories, staying fundamentally the same person no matter what body he's in. The consistency makes sense because even though he's flipping between two different appearances, his core identity and experiences are still intact. He's genuinely still himself, just navigating life from two different perspectives. And then we truly get to see what it's like for him to feel as though he's in a new body, and we get the payoff of it because damn, he's like, shit, I look good. It's like his mind is moving through different bodies. It's excellent anime. In contrast, the substance completely fails at this. Every time that sexy voice guy tries to convince Demi Moore and her other self that there has to be balance or that they're somehow the same person, you guys are both one, remember that, it falls flat. Like, bruh, how can they be the same person when they aren't sharing the same memories, experiences, or even sense of self? There is no possible way to believe in that oneness if she's not actually living the same things or feeling the same emotions. It's trying to connect to random people who have no shared experiences and then saying, oh, you're the same. And without that fundamental link, this whole concept just collapses. It's not even like Demi Moore wakes up with any sense of continuity or connection to her other self's experiences when they switch. Every time she wakes up as her new self or her actual self, she's shocked to find these random pieces of her life or other life all around her, almost like she's catching up on someone else's day and not her own. So again, what is the point of this? Why even bother with this transformation? Dude, if I were her, I'd feel completely duped. The whole switching would get old fast because there's no sense of true transformation. Just a weird, disjointed leap back and forth with no benefit. You're asleep for 1 week and you pick up where you left off, and it's like you didn't experience any happiness or benefit to your transformation whatsoever. And then when the other self, the supposed better self, starts taking more and more from Demi Moore, that's when I would pull the plug. That's exactly when I'd be like, no. Now you're not even respecting the balance and taking more of my actual life force while I'm asleep and can't help myself? Like, why keep this other version of herself around when it doesn't bring any actual reward? This girl doesn't look anything like her, doesn't share her life, and is definitely not a younger version of her in any believable way. So what's the motivation here? None. Ew, what the fuck kind of smile is this? Why are like dick veins running along her forehead? What in the meth? Yo, if a waiter came up and smiled at me like this, I would promptly leave. The fuck? Oh, another glaring issue. How is Sue even managing to exist without any ID? She just magically pops into the picture with no identification, no address, no banking account, no nothing, no last name. Yet somehow, people are supposed to send her things, interact with her, pay her as if she got all the paperwork and proof of identity. Realistically, someone would have noticed. Especially if she gets popular, like this random person just suddenly appears with no background nor history and no one's asking any questions? Right, people would absolutely start connecting the dots. It's like this film thinks we'd ignore these massive gaps in logic. And even though I really hate the "it was all a dream" trope, I would have actually respected this movie more so if it ended that way, because then at least some of these plot holes would have made sense. It could have wrapped up all these random disjointed elements by showing that none of this was actually real. What if Demi Moore had taken the substance and it gave her this big ol' acid trip that made her experience all of this stuff that happened in the movie in a way to psychologically mess with her and let her see, you see, things could be a lot worse if you don't just appreciate what you have, and all of that was some weird psychiatric placebo that made her see what would happen if she kept on chasing the need to be younger and relevant. And then she wakes up and she's like, holy shit, like a what was that freaking movie? It was an old movie that my my husband made me watch. Oh my God, the freaking rich guy, and then he was dead, and then he saw how people didn't like him anymore, and he just liked money, whatever. But it's something like that. I would have respected this film if they had done that. Would have been a modern version of that movie with a slightly different concept, and instead of money and power and influence, it's beauty and fame. And with how popular Sue became, nobody thinks to snap a picture of her in public or dig into her background to see where she lives. I mean, yes, that's very creepy, and people should respect people's privacy, but in a world where people love sharing every detail online, nobody tried to figure out who Sue's mom was, even though she's supposed to be very sick and Sue claimed that she was taking care of her, and that would have made for a very super feel-good story. You wouldn't get these creepy people, because they show that men are very creepy in this movie, and only men. So you wouldn't get any of these people tripping over themselves to find her mom or help her out, let's be honest, to use it for publicity. But somehow, social media doesn't exist in this universe, so maybe it's supposed to be set in the old days, because Demi Moore's character is using this vacuum that's literally built like a freaking boxcar. But even then, people were perfectly capable of digging into personal lives and snapping unflattering photos, following celebs around. I mean, the paparazzi was a thing.
You can't see the cars. Get the fuck out of the way! I can't see! There are cars there, motherfucker! Get out of the way!
And this movie expects us to believe that nobody asks questions, nobody investigates, and this random clone woman appears with no one noticing a single thing. I mean, there's only so much disbelief we can suspend. And this film asked us to stretch it so freaking far that it freaking snapped. Honestly, I was wondering at first, like, I didn't even know how this movie scored so many good reviews, unless people are just really into the body horror shock factor, which, by the way, was barely even there. Then you had the constant ass shots, and I'm like, okay, I get it. We're supposed to be seeing things through the character's eyes, and it was all about her sexuality and blah, blah, blah. But they just keep hammering it in over and over and over again. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, the audience gets it, dude. If you're a good director and writer, you should be able to drive home your point without dragging it out for a full 5 hair-pulling minutes. Audiences are watching this, so show some mercy and cut it down a bit. Then there's a ridiculous scene where Sue brings a guy home. I mean, there's 2 scenes like that, but there's one where he's actually like kind of semi-living with her. What exactly did she think was going to happen? Then they show this weird ass shot of him, which is just like, okay, this movie is so fucking weird, bro. Anyway, Sue's been doing this whole double life thing for months. You'd think that she'd have her schedule down to a science by now, especially when her whole identity depends on it. But no, she's constantly running out of this spinal fluid substance, stumbling into freak out mode, like she has no idea what to do and it just came upon her all of a sudden. Every time she's in a panic, scrambling to figure out where to get more, I'm wondering if she just has short-term memory loss, or if she's stupid enough to not know cause and effect. Like, this is her first rodeo? Like, this is supposed to be the same kind of person? So, but clearly, this is another point to make that it's not. I get it. The PSA here is about instant gratification and the self-destructive chase for perfection, but seriously, it's annoying because this character has already had enough near misses with the substance situation that she should be wise by now. And yet, she keeps making the same impulsive mistakes over and over, and it just makes no goddamn sense. And can we talk about the New Year's Eve cabaret dancers? In a live show supposedly broadcast to families? Why the hell were their duties out? Their milk bottles were on full display. That just threw me for a loop. There's no way something like that would air on American television, especially a program where kids and parents and grandparents are all tuning in together, or they're in the audience. It's meant to be a huge festive scene with Demi Moore's character dressed like some kind of oversized Cinderella, and then out of nowhere we have these cabaret dancers with their milk dumplings just out there soaking up all the oxygen. Like, it was such a jarring detail. And I get surrealism, like they're literally, I can't even show it on here, so I have to blur everything. But they're just like diddly diddly diddly, and tits are just freaking flopping, and all the men are like, like, I get surrealism, but there's a point where it crosses the line from interesting to just plain old pretentious. This movie just teetered right over that line and fell straight on its ass. And yeah, I can appreciate the film's commentary, the themes they were trying to convey. It's well shot in parts, the effects were impressive, and they did a solid good job using the music and unsettling sounds. But as we reached the end, all of that got swallowed up by the absolute ridiculousness. Making the main character into this squishy, fleshy monster spewing endless blood like she's some kaiju projectile vomiting, it was disgusting just to be disgusting. Yo, any message that the movie tried to deliver and built up to deliver was buried under the complete cringe. That was this ending. I mean, it already was stretching throughout the entirety of the movie, but the freaking ending, just a little bit that I showed you there, like, I barely had any respect for this movie to start with. And then by the end, it was long gone. One of the few redeeming parts, Fred. Poor Fred. Yo, he dodged such a huge bullet. Now just look at how he interacts with her, and she's already feeling absolutely down. Everyone's telling her she's old and ugly and whatnot, and she's just feeling horrible. It's supposed to be her birthday, so she's gotten older. And then out of nowhere, Fred comes like a ray of sunshine, and this is his exact reaction.
Lizzie Sparkle? Oh my God, I can't believe it. Fred from 10th grade homeroom.
Oh, Fred. Of course.
You haven't changed a bit. You're still the most beautiful girl in the whole wide world.
Aww. That's so cute. Oh my God. Like, he's, okay, you have these two older people. Fred is humble, sweet, and still sees her as the most beautiful woman in the whole world. He's a good guy, and frankly, he's very handsome for his age. I mean, even for an old man, I would give him a chance. Especially with that personality, look how cute he is. She could have been happy with him, found love, but no. Even now, she's still looking down on him. And all she sees is, ugh, that's what I'm like. Because he mentioned something about his cholesterol levels on the back of the paper that he gives her. But she's so obsessed with herself that she chases this ideal that she'll never actually attain.
There. Now you've got it.
Yo, to be honest, like, the fact that he even was like, can I take you out to drink? And he just went for it. This dude could have been chasing women 30 years younger than her. And he is like, no, I still like this woman. I still think she's gorgeous. Dude, what do you want? And the funny, ironic thing is that Demi Moore's character is looking down on Fred in the way that people are looking down on her. She's treating him exactly the same way everyone around her is treating her. That could be a product of her environment, but that's how disconnected people are when they're full of themselves. Then there's a later scene when she tries to call him, but ultimately stands him up, even though she looks gorgeous. I mean, yeah, she's an older woman, but she's still very pretty for her age. But she's unable to move past her obsession with competing against this better version of herself. She's like, oh, I gotta put on more makeup to look like her. She keeps going back and she keeps looking at the billboard outside and be like, no, I could look sexier. I don't like the way I look. And I'm just sitting here thinking, are you kidding me? I get it. It's supposed to be a deep portrayal of body dysmorphia where nothing is ever good enough. There's an irony here too. Body dysmorphia combined with aging hits hard for people in the entertainment industry who can't accept that they're getting older, especially when they're booted out when they are. Which, like, if you have a lot of money, then why wouldn't you just retire with it? But anyway, and while that's sad, it's also a reality of the industry. By refusing to have even a shred of humility, this woman loses everything. I mean, she snubs Fred at first, only to regret it later. And now she'd probably give anything to be with him, but her pride won't let her. And can we talk about the other absurdity that I have to mention? Again, I get that this is abstract horror, but the so-called better version of her just peeling out of Demi Moore's back. You got a human straight up coming out of your back, and she's somehow fine afterward. Like, after another entire human being just busts out of your back, and all you gotta do is slap on a few staples and you're good to go. I mean, seriously, she literally birthed an entire person out of her freaking spinal column. Full-on xenomorph style. And somehow, she's perfectly fine. And by the end of the movie, when the both of them are awake and the so-called better version realizes that Demi Moore tried to terminate her, how is it that she has all the super soldier strength all of a sudden? Where is that coming from? I get that it's supposed to be abstract horror, but when you drag it out into a full feature film, it feels like there's some part of it we're meant to take seriously, even though that's clearly not the case. It's like the movie's asking us to suspend disbelief, but to an exhausting degree. Jesus, this movie was so overwhelmingly bad that it should be on one of those Bad Movie Monday specials that I used to do. Lord of mercy, it was that painful to sit through. I'm not saying it's the worst movie, but good grief. I don't even understand why the main character shows up to the New Year's event at the end, unless she's completely lost her mind at this point. But seriously, the biggest takeaway here is you're not the same person. The entire premise falls apart when you're dealing with two bodies that don't share the same experiences, memories, or any true connection, as I said earlier. I know I keep harping on this, but what was the ever-loving point of it all if you don't even retain a single shared memory or experience or positive life experience, any advantage whatsoever? The whole thing becomes pointless. It's like you need some form of medication to make you feel better, but you're giving it to someone else. They leave the door, you can't even see them enjoy it. Honestly, like, this movie made me so mad. If you want a better version of this concept, just watch Lookism. It's a much better story. We've got real depth, it's got better writing, character development, it's well worth the time, and even the money. I'm so beyond relieved that I didn't actually pay for the Substance movie. Because as I've said, even on double speed, I still feel like I wasted my damn time.
Has been transferred, won't come back. But you can stop the experience as of now. Would you like to stop? To go back to being just you? On your own?
Dumbass.
And I think it even contradicts its own messaging in certain ways. It's supposedly critiquing the male gaze, but the camera is ogling at Margaret Qualley's ass a gratuitous amount, but never really challenges that objectification that women endure or interrogates societal trends. It's supposed to be so wrong that Demi Moore is being pushed out of the industry for getting older, but then it's using saggy boobs and deformations as something grotesque and terrifying.